As the jury continues to deliberate in Donald Trump's criminal trial, Donald Trump was seen in a conference room with his son Don Jr., who was making selfie videos with his dad. Donald Trump looking weak and tired and frankly very confused as Don Jr. is recording this selfie video, and Don Jr.'s like, hey dad, should you write some mean tweets? And then Donald Trump's like, I don't know, very proud of your mean tweets. The whole thing is very weird. I'm not going to ruin it. Let me show it to you. But in a bit, I want to show you some posts involving President Biden so you can just see the difference for yourself here. Oh, and I want to also show you something very special that I hadn't seen in a while, which was circulating yesterday that I was just like, wow. Anyway, here's the video that Don Jr. posted. Play this clip.
Hey guys, I'm here with your favorite president. We're cranking out a couple mean tweets at the courthouse. Why don't you read that last one, because I think it's pretty
Well, I think I'm going to put it out instead of reading it, but I know my son's doing very well on social media. I'm proud of him.
Stay tuned. It'll be a doozy.
I mean, that's such a strange video, huh? They're bonding over like mean and nasty tweets. Like this is the condition and state of the Republican Party. You see Donald Trump there. As I've said before, as you know, the jury's currently deliberating in Donald Trump's criminal trial. They've been deliberating on Wednesday for about 4 hours, 30 minutes plus. They sent 2 notes to Justice Merchan. One of the notes requested information and specifically testimony regarding the Trump Tower meeting where the election scheme was devised, where Donald Trump was present. I think that was an important question, and I think a good one from the perspective of the prosecutors, although it's really hard to read into these notes that deeper, so I don't really want to speculate. Then there was a second note from the jury where the jury requested that the judge reread some of the jury instructions, all of the jury instructions to them. I think it's important to note there are 2 lawyers on the jury as well, and so that may be why there was this request for a reread of the jury instructions. I think for the lawyers to maybe assist some of the other non-lawyers on the jury. One of the things that Donald Trump said as he was leaving the courtroom is he had said that he thinks Mother Teresa would not be able to beat these charges. That was a line that Donald Trump said. Here, watch what he said yesterday as he left court. Play this clip.
Thank you very much. I would say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt, because of the confliction, very, very corrupt. Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe. He's got to do his job. And it's not for me, that I can tell you. It's a disgrace. And I mean that. Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do.
And then Donald Trump had his spokesperson, Alina Habba, parrot that line as well and say that Mother Teresa couldn't beat these charges. Play this clip.
And I think that's why the president's comments and sentiments are exactly accurate. Mother Teresa really couldn't get out of this one, because if you say, if you have intent for a scintilla of a second, and it could be for anything, for any one of these 4 things, taxes, campaign, all the things that frankly they showed no evidence of, but they gave them so much breadth that I have concerns.
Yeah, I don't think Mother Teresa would have been involved with a adult film actress and made hush money payments. I also think Mother Teresa would probably have testified, but just very strange to invoke Mother Teresa. Then, as Donald Trump was leaving the courthouse as well, Donald Trump was whining and complaining that the prosecution did not call witnesses that work for the Trump organization. How odd is that? You could have called them. Take a look at what Donald Trump said here. Play this clip.
Time ago. But a lot of key witnesses were not called. Look at your list. Look at the players. And you know who I'm talking about. You can take 5 or 6 of them. Why didn't they call those witnesses? They didn't call them because they would have been on our side. And it's a shame. And in particular, one witness who's now suffering gravely because of what's happened, because of the viciousness of these thugs. The vicious people, what they've done to that person. And you know who I'm talking about. And they didn't call him as a witness. They didn't call anybody as a witness. And all these people they could have called themselves.
And then Donald Trump repeated that line again, that there were lots of witnesses who the prosecution didn't call. Play this clip.
There are a lot of witnesses, a lot of people that they could have called that they didn't call. Now, they didn't call them, obviously, because they would have been very bad witnesses for them. But take a look at the list. Because of the gag order, I won't go down into individual names. But you have a lot of big players, very big players, that would have solved their problem, or actually would have given us the win. We already have the win. If we had a fair judge, this case would have been over a long time ago.
Well, first and foremost, you could have testified. You told everyone you were going to testify. You didn't. One of the things that your lawyer, Todd Blanche, argued during his closing argument is that the prosecution should be faulted for not calling to the stand Eric Trump and Don Jr., since their names appeared as part of the criminal conspiracy as well. Pretty odd to throw your own children under the bus, but don't you think that the jury would probably reflect on that and go, wait a minute, why wouldn't Donald Trump call his own children? If you called Robert Costello, the MAGA lawyer who just did horribly on the stand, and then who else did you want the prosecution to call? Alan Weisselberg, your own former chief financial officer who's currently serving time in Rikers Island for engaging in perjury in the civil fraud case after previously serving time on Rikers Island for fraud, convicted of 2 felonies. You could have called him. It's fairly basic if you wanted to call him to the stand. Or what, your personal bodyguard, Keith Schiller? You could have called your personal bodyguard, Keith Schiller. The fact that you didn't call them, I think, speaks volumes. Oh, and then Donald Trump repeats this over and over again, that nobody even knows what the crime is here. And this case should just be dismissed right away so the judge can save his reputation. Here, play this clip.
The other thing, the confusion is, nobody knows what the crime is because there's no crime. Nobody knows what the crime is. The DA didn't name the crime. They don't know what the crime is. That's what the problem is. It's a disgrace. This thing ought to be ended immediately. The judge ought to end it and save his reputation. Thank you very much.
So in addition, everyone knows what it's falsification of business records. That's what this is, falsification of business records. Donald Trump then posts, I never knew Shannon Bream, Fox, was so naive. In her interview with my representative, Alina Habba, Shannon just suggested that crooked Joe Biden was not involved in my show trial. How stupid. Not only is he involved, he is virtually leading it and all of the other trials as well, meaning his people, because he's not mentally sharp enough to lead anything. Just take a look at the DOJ White House thugs involved. Again, it's just deranged lies over and over again. He posts this weird photo of himself, election interference, exclamation point. Then he writes, the scholars and legal experts are saying there is no crime. The right-wing pundits on Fox who prepare these articles so the lady who works for you can bring over these articles, who you pay over $100,000 from your political action committee to follow you around with a portable printer. Donald Trump's next post, crooked Joe Biden just announced that he will speak for a change at the end of his trial against me. Yesterday, he sent his mentally challenged servant, former actor Robert De Niro, to create a little chaos in front of the courthouse and to influence the trial, election interference. Well, De Niro really got under their very thin MAGA skin, obviously. And they call Robert De Niro mentally challenged servant. It's pretty strange. strange. Trump also posts a fake AI photograph of Mike Tyson with a Trump shirt. It's not a real photo. We exposed that on MidasTouch.com. Also, one of the things that Trump had MAGA World kind of spread over and over again is that the judge, Justice Merchan, just told the jury that they do not need unanimity to convict. Just 100% false. They just spread lies constantly. As Bradley Moss writes, people keep harping on this but are missing the context. The jury has to be unanimous that Trump falsified the records and did so with the intent to commit another crime. They do not have to be unanimous on what the other crime was. That's just the rule under New York law. You still have to be unanimous that Trump falsified the records. That's the threshold issue where you require a unanimous jury on the crime. The judge was just following what New York law is. This isn't some complicated, newfangled law. This law exists and has been followed before, over and over again. As our editor-in-chief Ron Filipkowski writes, Fox lies all day, every day, and our republic continues to suffer from effects those lies have on millions of gullible Americans. But the Murdochs don't care, and their hosts don't care. It's all about the ratings because ratings make them rich. And then, of course, Donald Trump posted this. Congratulations to the United States Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito for showing the intelligence, courage, and guts to refuse stepping aside from making a decision on anything January 6th related. All U.S. judges, justices, and leaders should have such grit. Our country would be far more advanced than its current status as a badly failing nation and headed by the worst president in American history, crooked Joe Biden. So to be clear, you had Justice Alito fly an insurrectionist flag, then lie about it, throw his wife under the bus, and claim that his wife did it in response to a neighbor fight, which we now know the fight took place after, not before, the insurrectionist upside down flag was put up. Then Justice Alito also had another insurrectionist flag at his New Jersey beach house mansion where he apparently lives this lavish lifestyle as well, but he had a flag there. And as Edward Isaac Dovere points out, Trump thanks Alito for not recusing himself from cases pending about Trump after Alito was criticized for a flag flying at his house that has been interpreted as a sign of support for Donald Trump, 2 of them to be exact. But take Donald Trump's posts and compare them to what President Biden is posting. President Biden writes, gas prices are down $1.40 from their peak after Russia's war, but they're still too high. My administration is releasing 1 million barrels of gasoline from the Northeast Gasoline Supply Reserve ahead of July 4th, which will lower prices at the pump when folks need it the most. President Biden writes, you shouldn't have to jump through hoops to get what you are owed. My administration is requiring airlines to provide automatic refunds when flights are canceled or significantly change. Americans deserve a better deal. President Biden writes, as the summer travel season begins, my administration is working to get Americans a better deal by mandating that airlines show upfront the price of checked bags, flight changes, or cancellations. All told, it's going to save families $500 million a year. President Biden writes, thoughts and prayers are not enough. It's time for an assault weapons ban. And you saw all those videos of Donald Trump. Compare them to President Biden right here at a really powerful speech that he gave in Philadelphia. Take a watch.
Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. You got it, kid. You got it. I've shown you who I am, and Trump has shown you who he is. And today, Donald Trump is pandering and peddling lies and stereotypes for your vote so he can win for himself, not for you. Well, Donald Trump will have a message for you. Not in our house and not in our watch.
And so this is what I wanted to share with you as well, for all of you. And I know most of you watch these videos until the very end. This was something that came across my feed in the past 12 hours that I wanted to share with you. As you see the lies, the grift, the disinformation spewed by the biggest con artist of them all, Donald Trump, and his takeover of the Republican Party that's gone full-fledged MAGA. Remember back in 2016 when Marco Rubio was running against Trump, and Rubio was viewed as, at that time, some up-and-coming star. The Republicans were trying to put him out there like he's the next Obama. Remember that? And he drew some very big crowds as well. Ultimately, he split the vote with others who were in that Republican primary. But remember what he said about Donald Trump. And as I watched this video of Rubio, my jaw drops. I remember he said this, but seeing it again was like, wow. I wanted to share it with you. Let's play it.
The stakes are giving control of the party of Lincoln and Reagan, of the conservative movement, and ultimately of the United States over to a con artist. That will not happen. I make this promise to you today. I will do whatever it takes. I will campaign as long as it takes. I will stay in this race as long as it takes. Donald Trump, a con artist, will never get control of this party. And the time has come for you. I know some of your friends have bought into this. Listen, friends, don't let friends vote for con artists. It is time to open our eyes. It is time to open our eyes. We cannot allow a con artist to get access to the nuclear codes of the United States of America. It's a big fraud. And it's time to open our eyes, and we will in the days and weeks to come. I'm confident of it.
Oh, there you have it, folks.
It is Thursday, the 30th of May of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Well, how are you on this Thursday? Poor old Donald Trump has to stew. Yeah. I love the fact he has to be in they call it a conference room. Well, it's, a kind of a little room in the courthouse, essentially, is what it is. And he has to wait there while the jury deliberates. So he's got his own conversation going on in his head, and he only has himself to answer the questions, if they come up. Do questions ever come up in a mind like that? I don't think so. So, on the local front, the idea of small-town American values, conservative values, they always spout off about, if only neighbors took care of neighbors. Okay, well, that's really nice. But maybe I shouldn't have included myself in the conversation. But, the way the world is, maybe you have to stoop to the level of the, paranoid. Because there's a lot of them out there. And I don't know, is mocking the paranoia the way to go? Probably not. But regardless, I did dip my foot in the cauldron of it. We'll see what kind of, at least verbal reprisals. Actually, I think I've been shadow banned. A few days ago, somebody put up about the new Bibles coming out and they're messing up Bible passages and stuff. Well, no shit, Sherlock. They've been doing that since it was in the Aramaic. Think about what was lost when it was in the Aramaic and the Greek, and then they put it into Latin. Well, even before that, when they got it into Hebrew, back into Hebrew. So, and then the King James version. Now, everybody thinks the King James version, when I say everybody, that people who believe in the Word, believes that the King James version was divinely inspired, so there couldn't have been a mistake. Oh, really? That's one nice way of saying it. If only we just disregarded the actual politics it took to get the King James Bible to what we all know, and I don't know, some people love it. But regardless, I thought, and maybe my first assumption is true, that all I have to do is endeavor into a conversation and it'll disappear from the page. Well, I think it's only disappearing for me. I think that maybe I'm being blocked or muted or something, which is fine because, no, it's not. It kind of pisses me off. But anyway, we'll see what sort of reprisals or whatever comes up in the hours ahead. But the point being is that, and rightfully, people should be a bit concerned, with people driving onto your property or coming to your property and, whatever. And one of the neighbors, and I'm presuming they live more out in the farmland, and it looked like somebody had stopped off the side of the road, and it was on a Ring camera or whatever. Now, they didn't actually drive into the driveway, as far as I can tell. But they were perpendicular to the highway, pulled off pretty much because there's a place to pull off because there's a driveway there. Either to let fast cars go by. The owner of this property did say, well, they sat there for quite a while. Well, they might have been looking at a map. Where the hell are we? We're supposed to go to the lavender fields, and we can't find them. Well, smell for the lavender. Well, lavender's everywhere. Anyway, I don't know. It could have been fairly innocuous. And maybe there's been run-ins with this particular car or people before. Now, the occupants were 2 females. That's what was given as the information, and they got part of the license plate number. And one of our neighbors said, well, this is about the time you pull out the 12 gauge and pepper them a bit and let them know who's boss. Yeah, pepper them with a 12 gauge. Okay. And of course, her reply, the lady who was concerned about someone stopping in front of her house and they're, in the dirt part of the shoulder where her driveway is, says that she had some other kind of gun. It sounded like a semi-automatic type. And then also said she's got intel in a go bag. Oh, okay. Then I know where we're at. So like I said, maybe I shouldn't have dipped my toe in that cauldron. But I did respond to the guy who said that, you should pull out the 12 gauge and, pepper him to show him who's boss. Because hasn't there been a few instances where high school kids pulled off into the wrong property? They thought they were going to a friend's house and they pulled into the wrong one, realizing as they're backing up, the owner of the property shoots them with a 12 gauge or a semi-automatic weapon or whatever it takes. And, some innocent 16-year-old girl gets her head blown off. How many times has that happened? Quite a bit. Black kid comes knocking on a door thinking that's where his little brother is, but it's the next door or the next street. He turned on the wrong street or whatever. Guy shoots him through the door. No one comes onto my property. They're a threat. And that's what this guy said. When reminded that you can't just do that. And the guy says, when somebody comes onto my property, they're a threat. And he was reminded by another one of our more level-headed neighbors that the law's the law. Okay. So maybe I should have not dipped my toe in the cauldron. But of course I had to respond to this fellow and just say simply, I have never, and I don't know anybody who shot anybody for coming onto their property and knocking on their door. They came on at the place uninvited, knocked on the door. I mean, I think shooting someone in a situation like that is like the very definition of being unneighborly. I thought we had small town values of neighborliness and the welcome wagon. Well, here I thought the welcome wagon was some sort of conservative, really weird kind of thing, but it was fun. welcome the newcomer. Now it's like, I'm going to shoot you because you are uninvited to even speak your mind. Girl Scouts came knocking on my door not the other day, but earlier in the year, or whenever they were out in droves, like they do every year. And bought some cookies for Mom when Mom was, obviously still alive. We weren't expecting anybody to be ringing the doorbell, and when the doorbell rings, the dogs, if you have dogs, they go a little, kind of go off. And they did. Did I open up my door angry? What the fuck are you doing on my property uninvited? I'm going to shoot you. They're Girl Scouts. Couple of female occupants in a car pulled off perpendicular to the road for, in the paranoid mind, an inordinate amount of time. Whatever that could be. It could be seconds, minutes. It could have been an inordinate amount of time. Instead of being a good neighbor, I'm packing. Well, okay. On the other hand, when you think of how many Nazi meth heads are in this area, maybe you should be a little suspect. But, if somebody is close enough, like at the door, I think, if they lose an eyeball or two, they won't be shooting anybody with accuracy. Okay. Of course, I'm 70 now. Can I still do that? 2 dragons after the pearl, if you know what I mean. We practice that quite extensively, as well as other defensive and offensive. And when I say offensive, I mean it can be offensive. Techniques in which to protect oneself and those around you when need be. Not jacked up like at the first moment of a crash, you go off and, fill the field with lead. That's why we have automatic weapons. It's because Americans were such bad shots. They had to give them an opportunity to be able to actually kill something because they could never shoot straight. Well, let's give them something that we can just fill the field with lead. They did. And now we got automatic weapons killing little kids in schools, and people are upset because we think that's a bad thing. All right. Somebody comes onto my property uninvited, I shoot. Really? I buy Girl Scout cookies from them. Seems like the neighborly thing to do. Shooting a little Girl Scout would be, I think, not very nice, and the neighbors might be upset. I would hope they would be. All right. But I'm a woke liberal. I'm the resident socialist or commie or whatever that is. You got to be a pretty goddamn right-wing Nazi to think someone like me is a commie. Jeez. And I've never really gone into my Berkeley experience of how they all thought I was like some redneck. And I guess maybe they were right. Came from redneck country. Here I am, back. Okay. Anyway, enough of that. We have really burned through some time, and I better get it going here. So what do we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we begin on this fabulous, and we've been begun here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A reminder, my Metro Shrimp and Grits recipe is on the show notes and links diary on Daily Coast, so check it out. Well, on the rest of the menu, a conservative Republican blocked the confirmation of the first Native American federal judge for Montana. I think John Tester's going to do something about that. He will. The governor of Louisiana, I hate that guy, we all do, signed legislation that makes it a crime to knowingly approach within 25 feet of a police officer while they are, quote, engaged in law enforcement duties, end quote. And this is workarounds to keep people from filming the cops doing their dastardly deeds. And a MAGA Republican on the election board for Fulton County, Georgia, refused to certify the primary election. Some people would say it started, and other people would say it never stopped. After the break, we move to the chef's table where police searched the European Parliament as part of an investigation into whether EU lawmakers were bribed to promote Russian propaganda. And in a related story, the U.S. pledged $135 million in aid to Western-leaning Moldova to counter Russian influence there. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Just going to tuck right into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. And this is from the staff at the Associated Press. A Republican lawmaker from Montana blocked a Biden administration judicial nominee who would have been the state's first Native American federal district court judge. Attorney Dana Jackson with the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes had been nominated last month by President Joe Biden. The post requires Senate confirmation. Senator Steve Daines blocked Jackson from consideration because the administration never sought his consent. Prior to her nomination, said Rachel Dumke, a spokesperson for the lawmaker, Senator Daines believes confirming federal judges with lifetime tenure is among the most important decisions he will make, and that these individuals must be trusted to not legislate from the bench, Dumke said in an emailed statement. A White House spokesperson refuted Dumke's assertion and said members of Daines' team had interviewed Jackson last year, but that the senator refused to meet with her. This claimed lack of consultation seems to be little more than pretext, and it's shameful that Senator Daines is depriving Montana of the talents of a principled, fair, and impartial jurist like Dana Jackson, said Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates. Now, juxtapose that with Eileen Cannon. Sarah Klein of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Critics of a new Louisiana law, which makes it a crime to approach within 25 feet of a police officer under certain circumstances, fear that the measure could hinder the public's ability to film officers, a tool that has increasingly been used to hold police accountable, and we can't have that. Under the law, anyone who is convicted of knowingly or intentionally approaching an officer who is lawfully engaged in the execution of his official duties, and after being ordered to stop approaching or retreat, faces up to a $500 fine, up to 60 days in jail, or both. I would probably amend that and say, and both. The law was signed by Governor Jeff Landry, a Republican, and goes into effect on August 1st. While the legislation's language does not specifically mention filming, critics say that by default, it would limit how close a person can be to observe police. Opponents have also gone further to question the law's constitutionality, saying it could impede on a person's First Amendment rights. Well, everybody knows they don't care about that when they don't want to. Proponents argue the new law will create a buffer zone, which already exists, by the way, to help ensure the safety of officers, and that bystanders would still be close enough to film police interactions. Would they? With a phalanx of bicycle cops blocking the view. Bystanders' cell phone videos are largely credited with revealing police misconduct, such as the 2020 killing of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police and reshaping the conversation around police transparency. And that's why they want to cover it up. Amy of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The election board in Georgia's largest county voted yesterday, Tuesday, to certify its May 21 election results, but not before one of the board's Republican-appointed members abstained. The abstention by Fulton County Election Board member Julie Adams aligns with her lawsuit seeking to more closely control election operations and to win a legal ruling finding county election boards can refuse to certify election results. Reading a prepared statements, Adams argued she could not accept the results given prior election administration problems in the county. There were none, and argued that the board has illegally given its powers to employees. The other four members, including Republican-appointed Michael Heekin, voted to certify the results in what election director Nadine Williams called a very successful election. In question is a portion of Georgia law that says county officials shall certify results after engaging in a process to make sure they are accurate. Those who disagree with Adams, including the Democratic Party of Georgia, argue that the law gives county election board members no wiggle room to vote against certifying results, saying the lawsuit is a ploy by supporters of Donald Trump, and this lady is an election denier well known. All right, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
If you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music,
this is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 1908, the first U.S. drinking water plant implemented chlorination to protect community health, leading to a dramatic decrease in waterborne disease. Clearly, drinking water treatment is one of the great public health achievements of the 20th century. Welcome to CDC Audio Rounds. I'm Dr. Michael Beach from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Despite these improvements, waterborne disease in the U.S. is still part of everyday life. There are 4 critical areas: drinking water, recreational water, the built environment, and climate change. First, drinking water. Almost 16 million households use private wells, which are not covered by government regulation. Many people don't know they should have their well water tested annually. Clinicians should consider a patient's water source as part of their evaluation, particularly in rural areas where agricultural and animal runoff may impact water quality. Second is recreational water use. Americans make hundreds of millions of swimming visits each year to oceans, lakes, and swimming pools. The increased number of outbreaks reported find the major culprit is the extremely chlorine-tolerant parasite Cryptosporidium. Clinicians should advise patients not to swallow recreational water and to refrain from swimming when they have diarrhea. If diagnosed with cryptosporidiosis, wait 2 weeks after cessation of symptoms before getting back in the water. Third, let's talk about the built environment. We've created buildings and homes that are associated with miles of pipes and warm water, ideal growth environments for biofilms, the scum layer in pipes known to harbor pathogens. Waterborne disease transmission now also includes direct contact and inhalation of aerosols created by shower heads and hot water taps. Clinicians should be aware that advanced age, immunocompromising conditions, underlying lung disease, and a history of smoking increase risk for infection with Legionella and other respiratory pathogens commonly found in building water systems. And finally, climate change. Water temperatures around the globe have been gradually climbing. Naegleria fowleri is a climate-sensitive, warm water-loving amoeba found in freshwater lakes, usually in southern tier states. It migrates up the nose to the brain and causes primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, a rare but almost universally fatal disease. Over the past several years, we've seen Naegleria's geographic range expanding northward. CDC also just published an investigation showing for the first time that Naegleria fowleri was found in residential tap water. It caused the death of 2 people in Louisiana who were regular users of neti pots for sinus irrigation. All patients should understand that tap water from any source is not sterile. As a result, clinicians should recommend that people using nasal irrigation devices reconstitute solutions using boiled, distilled, or sterile water. Integrating an understanding of waterborne disease into everyday clinical histories, lab requests, and anticipatory guidance for patients can help you better diagnose waterborne disease and educate your patients about simple disease prevention measures. Thank you.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. A poll by Gallup finds majority support for a major third-party option among almost every segment of voters, ticking up to 63% last fall. This includes increases among Republicans and independents. Gallup asks this question: in your view, do the Republican and Democratic parties do an adequate job of representing the American people, or do they do such a poor job that a third major party is needed? Among those who answered no, a third party is needed, 58% identified as Republicans, 75% as independents, and 46% as Democrats. As to household income, 63% of voters with incomes less than $50,000 thought a third party was needed. Incomes of $50,000 to $100,000 were 58%, and over $100,000, 70%. Since 2013, support for a major third party hovers at plus or minus 60% and hasn't dropped below 40% since the poll's inception in 2003. Third parties have been viewed as spoilers in American elections, such as Ralph Nader and the Green Party in 2000 or independent Ross Perot in 1992. But democracy reform advocates argue single ballot open primaries offer more choices, and ranked choice voting allows voters to vote with their heart for a third party candidate while still choosing a major party candidate as a second choice. We've linked to the Gallup poll and more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. It was a day that would become known as the Memorial Day Massacre. 10 demonstrators were killed by police bullets while protesting at Republic Steel on the southeast side of Chicago. U.S. Steel, also known as Big Steel, had signed a contract with the Steel Workers Organizing Committee, part of the CIO. But several smaller companies, known as Little Steel, refused to recognize the union. This included Republic Steel. The union called for a strike against Little Steel. In Chicago, sympathizers from all around the city gathered on Memorial Day at Sam's Place, a bar where the union set up its strike headquarters. After a round of speeches, the crowd began a march across a field toward the Republic Steel mill. They were stopped midway by a formation of well-armed Chicago police officers. While demonstrators at the front of the procession argued for their right to proceed, police mercilessly fired into the crowd and tracked down people as they fled. Molly West, a typographical union Local 16 member and a youthful demonstrator at the time, remembered hearing the police scream, "Get off the field or I'll put a bullet in your back!" Newsreel footage captured the barbaric and bloody scene. The state's attorney exonerated the police and their assault. But a federal congressional committee found the police had indeed used excessive force. Today, there is a sculpture commemorating those who were killed. The sculpture was created by Ed Blazek, a former employee of the Republic Steel Company. It features 10 steel pipes, each representing a smokestack of the 10 steel mills that once operated in the area. They also represent the 10 demonstrators who were executed for the crime of wanting a better life. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 52 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting to be a bit warmer today, slated to be somewhere around 80 to 84 here at the mothership, and that is rather nice. Sunny conditions should prevail throughout the day with winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. A few passing clouds, of course. Clear skies overnight with lows in the low 50s. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then plentiful sunshine tomorrow. Highs in the mid-80s or even warmer. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and should have some more 80 degree to 90 degree weather on Saturday, and then plummeting down into the mid to upper 70s on Sunday with rain forecast for Sunday and Monday. We'll see if that changes, because it always is subject to change here in Southern Oregon. Grass pollen is rated very high here in our little hamlet of Rogue River, Oregon. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 23 parts per million, and that daytime UV index remains very high at level 9, and you know to take care. We all do. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.28 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 77%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. The personal weather station near the city center of London is registering at the moment 65 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 60 degrees and cloudy with a thunderstorm advisory. Rome is 76 and partly cloudy, also with a thunderstorm advisory. Bagram is 66 and clear. Hong Kong is 71 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 71 degrees with showers in the vicinity. Melbourne, Australia is 62 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and sunny. Chicago, Illinois is 60 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 65 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. At the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Police searched the offices and residence of an employee of the European Parliament yesterday, Wednesday, as part of an investigation into whether EU lawmakers were bribed to promote Russian propaganda and undermine support for Ukraine, prosecutors said. Just days before European elections, the Belgian Federal Prosecutor's Office said searches took place at the employee's apartment in Brussels, his parliamentary offices in the EU capital city, and in Strasbourg, where the EU Parliament's headquarters are located in France, were also checked. Belgian and French authorities, in partnership with the EU's Judicial Cooperation Agency, Eurojust, carried out the operation. Europe-wide elections to choose a new EU Parliament are set for June 6th through the 9th. An investigation was announced last month by Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, who said his country's intelligence service has confirmed the existence of a network trying to undermine support for Ukraine. I wonder if Rudy and Manafort are part of that. I wonder. The prosecutor said they believe the employee played a significant role. Several news outlets identified the suspect as Guillaume Pradura, a staffer for EU lawmaker Marcel de Graaf of the far-right Dutch party Forum for Democracy. I'm shocked. A person with knowledge of the investigation confirmed that the reports were accurate. The official was not allowed to speak publicly because the probe is ongoing. De Graaf said in the social media platform Twitter, though there's some weird X thing that they keep wanting to say, but it's Twitter, that he and Pradura were not contacted by authorities. Really? Pradura previously worked for Maximilian Krah, the top candidate for Germany's far-right Alternative for Germany in next month's European election, who was recently banned from campaigning by his party. Krah had been also under scrutiny after authorities in Brussels searched his offices at the European Parliament in connection with one of his assistants, who was arrested last month, as reported here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, on suspicion of spying for China. Madam Gerda, also at the World Desk of the Associated Press, brings us this final amuse-bouche. Here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, yesterday, Wednesday, pledged $135 million in aid to Moldova for energy security and to counter Russian disinformation as the Western-leaning nation struggles to blunt Moscow's push for influence that has been buoyed by recent successes in its war in neighboring Ukraine. Blinken opened a short visit to Eastern Europe with a stop to Chisinau, Moldova's capital, where he announced the assistance at a news conference with President Maya Sandu. America's top diplomat said $85 million would go to bolster energy infrastructure, and $50 million was aimed at overhauling the energy and farming industries and deterring misinformation. That, in turn, will bolster the ability of Moldovans to resist Russian interference, to hold free and fair elections, to continue down the path to the European Union and Western integration, to create more economic opportunity, Blinken said. One of the other things that's so important is sharing information about disinformation and misinformation, which is one of the most potent hybrid tools that Russia uses, and that's something that we are doing. He planned to travel to the Czech Republic later this week. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.